Last week we learned how to use the Pilates breathing method when it comes to pulling up in ballet. This week we're going to be putting that all into action. How's it guys? My name is Carmen, ex-ballet teacher, ex-Savoy founder, and lover of all things ballet. I've even got the training to back it up. With my Chiquetti teacher's qualification and years of teaching under my belt, I am here to help you level up your ballet game in a fun, practical, and easygoing way. This acronym is a list of the 7 movements in dancing, and in this beginner series we will be diving deep into each of them. But for today's lesson, we're going to be focusing on probably the most important movement in dance, which is the plié. We'll explore what it means, why it's so important, and how to execute it with proper technique. Most people think a plié is simply just a bend and stretch of the knees. But it's so much more than that. Let's take a look at the meaning of the word, shall we? In my Ryman's Dictionary of Classical Ballet Terms, plié, a folding or bending of the knees over the toes with the legs turned out. Practiced at the bar to warm and strengthen the muscles of the legs, and in the center to refine the dancer's equilibrium. Almost every movement or linking step in ballet will use some form of a plié, so it's super important that you master this movement. It's about control, alignment, and flow. Plié builds strength, flexibility, and coordination. And if you're wondering why my back is facing you, simply to show off my brand, Olive and Bob. The key elements of a correct plié are as follows. Proper alignment of the head, shoulders, hips, and feet, as well as even weight distribution through the feet. If you haven't done so already, please go and watch the 2 previous videos in this series, because in those 2 videos I go deep into how to pull up correctly and how to use the Pilates breathing method to engage your core. To keep the movement smooth and controlled, it's not simply a bend and stretch. Points to remember: it is important to breathe during ballet. In fact, it is highly encouraged. Please don't stop breathing. And please avoid common mistakes such as tucking the pelvis under and rolling in the ankles. Let's now get into the meat of the subject matter. There are 2 different kinds of pliés. You get a Demi plié, which is half a plié, and a grand plié, which is a full plié. Now, it is important to note that when you do Demi pliés, you constantly keep your heels on the floor. They do not even inch away from the floor in like a millimeter. They stay on the floor. When it comes to grand pliés, it's somewhat different. In some positions, you will keep your heels on the floor in a grand plié. In other positions, you will in fact take your heels off the floor. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to take our heels off the floor. You're basically going to keep your heels on the floor for as long as you can until they eventually need to come off the floor. So that is where you really build the flexibility in the Achilles tendon and in the calf. Let's now slowly go through the different pliés in the different positions. For the purposes of this being a beginner plié ballet class, we're going to start with feet parallel. Again, if you didn't watch that video on positions of the feet, please go and watch it. I will link it for you. So you're going to start with your feet parallel. So now it's important to note that when you do bend your knees in a plié, that you keep your knees aligned over your middle toe. So the toe that's next to the big toe, that one, you want your knee to go over that second toe like this. So we're not going to have knock knees like this, and you're not going to roll your ankles out like this, because now look at my feet. This touches back on that video where you need to actually keep the weight pressure almost even on all parts of the feet. So put your hands on your hips, keep your tummy in. Remember all those corrections from the previous lesson. I'm not going to go through them all now, but in general, tummy in, shoulders back, tummy in, wings back and down, glutes down, wrapping round and through. And now you're going to bend your knees and make sure that your knees are in line with your second toe. Look down to see that they are. Okay, did you get it right? I hope so. We're going to start now in first position. So bring your heels together. Remember kissing heels. Remember all the corrections from the previous lessons of tummy in, glutes back, down, round, through, shoulders back, lifting up, closing your gates. Now you're going to translate what you did with feet parallel, where your knees were in line with your second toe. The same thing is going to happen here. So when you bend your knees, make sure you activate your glutes so that you have this wrapping feeling in the hip sockets. I would actually like to say one more thing now that we've started with pliés with regards to the pulling up. Imagine this is your femur over here and this is your hip socket. Now how it happens is the femur goes into the hip socket like this. So now if you are not pulling up enough, it's going to feel like your leg is restricted. So this is one of the reasons why pull-up is so important, because it helps allow mobility and rotation in the hip socket. So what we want to do when we're thinking of pulling up is lifting our hips off of that bone. Okay. So lifting up nice and tall, remember all those corrections, tummy in, glutes down, back, round, through, shoulders back, wings down, close your gates, lifting up out of your hip sockets. Now as you plie, what I see lots of people doing, they'll kind of do a plie like this. Not even, okay. There's no action, there's no energy being used, and with the plie you have to use energy. Basically at the end of the plie, I want you to look like you have run a marathon. I want you to be like like that, okay. Then you know you've done it correctly. If you're hot, a little bit sweaty, and a bit out of breath. So when it comes to doing pliés now, you really want to have that. If you remember in the previous classes, I'm talking about the push and pull motion, one going up, one going down. That is the kind of sensation you're going to have when you are performing a plié. You don't want to just willy-nilly be going bend and stretch, bend and stretch. This doesn't build any strength, it doesn't build coordination, it's just bad. Okay, so what you want to imagine is that you're constantly pushing and pulling while you're doing a plie. So for instance, when you go into the bend, you want to almost feel like someone is stopping you, they're lifting you up from here, and they're saying don't go down, but your legs are pushing yourself into the floor. So it's a constant opposite feeling. This wants to go up and this wants to go down. Okay, so you're pulling up, 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 and you're pushing down into the floor. Now when you come up from a plie, it's going to be the opposite. You must almost imagine like someone is trying to push you down over here, and you're lifting up still here, okay? So no one's pushing you here, they're pushing you here. So someone's pushing you to go down, and you're like, no, I want to come up. So you literally have to push up against the gravity coming up and pull up at the same time. So there's constantly a pushing and pulling feeling. I am already sweating. Okay, it is very hot here today, but yeah, you know that you're doing a plie correctly if you are sweating and hot while doing it. So remember tracking the knees over the toes, knees back, tummy in, glutes engaged, going down, lifting up. Now you're going to lift up, but you're going to squeeze your legs together. So now when you're going to come up from your plie, you want to almost imagine, like what I say to my young ones, is that there's a big ball between your legs. And you need to now squeeze it together so that you can stretch your legs. So coming up, you're going to squeeze the ball, squeeze the ball, squeeze it, squeeze it, squeeze it, squeeze it, squeeze it, lifting up, lifting up, lifting up. Everything closed and maintained. Okay, so in the plie, at no point are you doing this, knees like this. No point you're doing that. At every point you are pushing and pulling, we're constantly thinking about all those corrections I gave you in the previous videos with the pull-up. That is the most important. So for movements in ballet, plie, definitely one of the most important. But before you can even attempt to get that right, you have to have your posture correct and the alignment and the core strength in that. So please always go back to those first videos to make sure that you are doing that all correctly. Another way of looking at turnout is if you think of everything as constantly opening from the inside out. So you've got energy shooting through here and out, through here and out. So that turnout is constantly wrapping around and down at the back of your legs and coming up here. So pretty much when you're thinking of pulling up as well, everything is going down at the back, everything is coming up from the top. So when you bend, you're going to pull up, up, up. Remember, someone's stopping you from going up, but you are pushing down. And when you're coming back up, someone's pushing you down, and you are also squeezing a ball tight between your legs. And that pull-up doesn't stop. Okay, I think I've harped on that for long enough. I hope you guys have got it. If you have any other questions, please comment them down below and I will get back to you on them. So now we're going to go through the pliés in the different positions, and I'm also going to show you where in a grand plié you'd take your heels off the floor and where you'd keep them on the floor. The demi plié will be performed with the heels on the floor. In the grand plié, your heels will eventually come off the floor. I've just brought the camera down a bit so that we can keep focus more on the body section here. Another way of thinking of the plié is to literally push down and pull up. Okay, remember the pull up is constantly still happening here. So pushing down doesn't mean pushing down from here. It literally means pushing down through the legs and then pulling up through the legs. Okay, so demi plié in first position is literally just bend, keep the heels on the floor and stretch. So push and pull. Then when it comes to the grand plié, this is where you're going to lift your heels off the floor. But first you want to get to the full depth of your demi plié. Okay, now I can't go any more deeper in my demi plié than this, which means now in order to do my grand plié, I have to now lift my heels off the floor. So it's a demi plié, keep the demi plié, and now with much duress the heels come off the floor. And then the first thing to come down when you come up is literally the heels and then the rest of the plié. So the heels are the last to leave the floor and the first to come back to the floor. Always keep that in the back of your mind. Because if you do it like this, if you just lift the heels up whenever, you'll end up with something like this. And then all your alignment has just completely gone out the window. I'm actually going to bring it here so I can hold onto something. Okay, so demi-plié, keep your heels on the floor. They are the last to leave the floor and the first to return, and then pushing, pulling back up, you go. Okay? Squeezing the legs together. Second position is literally second. So demi-plié is just a slight bend of the knees. So don't go too deep in your demi-plié. Otherwise your grand plié, you're going to have your bum on the floor. Because remember, a demi-plié is literally half a bend. Okay. So bend and stretch. Now with the grand plié, remember it's 1 foot apart, distance for second position. With the grand plié, you're going to get to your demi-plié, and then you're just going to push a little bit further without releasing the glutes. Grand plié goes just a little bit further to the point where you won't stick your bum out. So watch it sideways on. So the demi-plié, now I'm going to push through onto a grand plié. I'm keeping my glutes activated, all the turnout and everything, and I'm squeezing and pulling to come back up. If I come here, I can still keep my bum down, but if I want to go lower, I'm going to start having to release my glutes to get further down. And you don't want to get to that point. You want to just go as deep as you can without releasing your glutes. So we're not going to be doing the third position plié today because it's pretty much the same as fifth. So we're going to go straight on to fourth. But first, to start off, we're going to go into fourth ouvert. Now, fourth ouvert is where your heels are literally just opposite like this. In fourth ouvert, the grand plié, you will keep your heels on the floor. Okay, so the demi-plié will go. Keep your glutes down. Now, this is important also, because now you've got one foot in front of the other. You don't want this hip to slip back. The foot that's at the back, that hip mustn't slip back. You need to try keep it as parallel to in front of you as possible. Okay, so you're going to go demi-plié, keeping everything nice and square, and stretch. Now the grand plié is just a bit deeper than that, keeping your heels on the floor. Okay, I can feel that over here, this bone and muscle actually wants to stop me from going any deeper than that. So it'll be different for everyone how deep you can go in your grand plié and fourth open, okay? Fourth ouvert. So demi-plié and stretch. Remember squeezing, the same thing. Just because one foot's in front doesn't mean we can let go of what we've done all that work on. So grand plié, bend, half a bend, and then go a little bit deeper and come up, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze to come up. Now what a lot of people have a tendency to do when they come up from a plié, particularly grand plie and fourth open, is as they stretch the legs, the glutes slip a little bit back like this. Did you see how my pelvis tilted a little bit? And then in turn, my ankle rolled. Now we are going to move on to fourth croisé. So this is where you would be opposite fifth position. So now make sure your ankles aren't rolling like that. Keep them nicely up. Glutes in, back, down, wrapped around, keeping this hip as far forward as possible. Okay? Now your demi plie is going to keep the heels on the floor. Remember, demi plie is always heels on the floor. Now in the grand plie in fourth croisé is where your heels will come off the floor. So you'll go as deep as you can without popping your heels off the floor. They are the last to leave. And then when coming up, they're the first to come back to the floor and then stretch. Okay, so remember, you're going down as far as you can, keeping your heels on the floor. They're the last to leave, first to return, and squeeze to come up. And then the same thing in fifth position. In fifth position, again, if you need help with the positions of the feet, it's in the previous videos. So fifth position, the demi plie again, heels will be on the floor. In the grand plie, you're going to keep your heels on the floor for as long as possible. They're the last to leave, then they're the first to return, and squeeze to come up. So basically, when it comes to the grand plie, you'll keep your heels on the floor in all open positions. So in second position and in fourth open. Otherwise, all the other positions in the grand plie, you will be bringing your heels off the floor. But under duress, remember, it's not just a lift the heels up. Okay, let's talk about some corrections or some common mistakes that could be happening. If you get told by your teacher, body, or pull your bum in, or something along those lines, that generally means you've let go of your glute muscles and your body is now sticking out. So you really want to make sure that those glutes are constantly activated throughout the ballet class. Second of all, your knees might not be tracking over your second toe, and that could be because you've let go of your turnout. So always make sure that you're turning out from the hips. Remember, in the hip socket, you need to pull up nice and tall so that you can create space, so it can also help with the turnout. And then thirdly, the heels in the grand plie, they are the last to leave the floor and the first to return. So it takes actually a significant amount of energy to get those heels down as quickly as possible. You don't want that to drag on for long, because then you lose the impetus of the plie, and then it really is a struggle to come back up. So that really is your friend in a grand plie, is to get those heels, because it makes everything else kind of lock into place to get those heels onto the floor as quickly as possible. And now for fun, we're going to do a plie exercise. This is the grade 5 pliés from the Shikesi ballet method. So it starts off in fifth position. Place your hand on the bar, point to second, and lower the heel. You're going to demi plie and stretch. Demi plie and stretch. And then grand plie 1, 2, 3, 4. Point close first. You're going to repeat it in first position. We'll then go on to fourth position. And then the last position will be fifth position. And then we just finish standing beautifully at the bar. Okay. So let's put the music on and do that. So to start off at the bar, standing nice and tall. Remember your glutes, tummy in, shoulders back and down, wrapping around, chin parallel to the floor, slightly lifted, ankles off the floor, lengthening through the legs. Okay, stand nicely at the bar or at the chair or table, wherever you find yourself. Hand on the bar, point second, lower. Demi plie. Demi, grand plie 1, 2, 3, 4, point close first, demi plie. On this grand plie, your heels will be back on the floor on count 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, point close fourth. Demi plie. Demi plie. Grand plie. 1, 2, heels on the floor, and 3, 4, point close, 5th, Demi, Demi, ground plie, 1, 2, 3, 4, and close. Nice work. Other foot, left foot front, point, and bend, stretch, 2, ground plie, and 1, 2, 3, 4, point close first, demi plie, demi, ground plie, 1, 2, 3, 4, point fourth, demi plie. Keep your hips nice and straight. Lift up as you go down. 2, on 3, up. 4, and 5th. Demi plie, lift up. Remember pulling up to go down. On 3, heels up. 1. I meant heels down. That was exhausting. I hope you guys are also dying after that, because I surely am. Also, there's like no air conditioning in here, and it is like over 30 degrees today, so I feel like I am literally cooking. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that plie class. I am drenched, so I hope you guys feel the same, and I say that with love, because then I know you've really worked hard and you've tried really hard to engage all your muscles. I encourage you guys to practice your pliés and go back to the other classes, practice your pull-up, practice your turnout. It'll get better over time. I mean, for me personally, I danced my whole life and I haven't religiously been doing ballet at all, and I just recently, well, last year, started going back to ballet, like teaching myself, and that's only once a week. And even doing these pliés, I honestly felt like I was going to die, so please don't feel alone. We are in this together, literally. Yeah, please, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments and I will get back to you. I just want to tell you guys, thank you so much for being here on this journey of ballet. I'm so glad that you guys are serious about doing ballet. It warms my heart, makes me so happy. I love reading your comments. But I'll see you guys in the next one, where we'll be uncovering the second of the 7 movements in dance. But have a lovely afternoon, or wherever you find yourself while you're doing this. Lots of love.